Today we'll be doing a giveaway and we're going to be talking about the beginner's guide for keeping tarantulas. Let's cue up that intro. What is going on YouTube? Welcome to Red's Exotics, where I do exotic pet guides, tutorials, and exotic pet feeding. Today we'll be talking about my beginner's guide in keeping tarantulas, the basic fundamentals you will need. So stay tuned till the end of the video because I will be doing my first giveaway. The list of the tarantulas that I'll be giving away include a very special tarantula that is very dear to me, a GBV. So anyways, I would also like to let you guys know I won't be covering on how you can sex tarantulas from their genders. This guide will just basically cover, everything you need to know about keeping tarantulas in the hobby. So let's go back with the beginning of where you might get your tarantulas from, like locally, Let's begin with old worlds and new worlds. So basically, old worlds are the tarantulas that came from like Europe, Africa, and Philippines and Asia. Those tarantulas have more potent venom compared to like new worlds. So with their self-defense, they're more on skittish or they bolt a lot, meaning they tend to move faster than new worlds. They can be very, very hard to catch once they've escaped your sight. Usually keeping like old worlds is for like, advanced keepers, and they're not basically for beginners. But at the same time, I disagree. Any tarantula can be your first tarantula as long as you do your research and you know what you're doing with the tarantula you bought. And then let's get with the new worlds. So new worlds tarantula originated from Central America, North America, and then South America. Around those areas are where you'll commonly see new world tarantulas. These tarantulas have their own versions of self-defense, meaning new world tarantulas have like this urticating hairs where they can just flick from their abdomen, where they rub their legs between their abdomen. The hairs shoot out of their abdomen. That's very, very itchy. One time I got like I have this tarantula which is a Terraphosis, and it's a new world tarantula, and it rubbed its abdomen, and the urticating hairs just like itch for weeks at a time, and it was very uncomfortable for me in my position. And then most new worlds are very hardy, their bodies are more built. They got a bit more mass in them, wherein like old worlds are like more on like slender body form compared to like new worlds where they're in more like a hardy body. They tend to be a bit more, slow moving compared to like old world tarantulas, which can be like a good reason why most people prefer new worlds as their first beginner tarantulas. And it might be deceiving to some, but like at the same time, any tarantula can be your first tarantula. And then let's get on with the places you'll definitely find your tarantulas. Tarantulas tend to live in different areas in the world, so they have to adapt to their environment. So with this, there is this thing called fossorial tarantulas, terrestrial tarantulas, arboreal tarantulas, and then if you include it, semi-arboreal tarantulas. So let's begin with fossorial tarantulas, meaning these tarantulas tend to be more of a burrower. For example, your OBTs, your Petronoculus marinus. These are very common old world tarantulas. They're basically available to any places you can go. And then you have like your king baboon tarantulas. They tend to like burrow a lot and they just stay there for like their entire life. And then you have like Aphanopelma simanis, where they just find food, scavenge for food or look for food. And then you have the terrestrial tarantulas, which is the tarantulas that you see just like on the ground. They don't tend to burrow, they just like to be out in the open and just be a nice display of tarantula. A nice example would be like the most common and most popular tarantulas you could ever see, the Brachypelma genus. So these are like, your Mexican red knee tarantulas, the fire leg tarantulas, and then you have like, the most common tarantula in the world, the Telodical albopilosum, which is your curly hair tarantulas. And then then let's get on with arboreal tarantulas. These tarantulas tend to live in the trees and just out and about, and they're never shy. These tarantulas are up and about in the trees, you know, webbing up the trees and branches if you were to see them in the wild. These tarantulas would be more appealing to people that want to get like a tall enclosures, just setting up like nice big branches, and that like getting this tarantulas to like web up the enclosure arboreally. So a good example would be like your Carabiner versicolor, Vicularia genus. Then we have like the pokies, the Poecilotheria, and then we have like a fourth one. I'm not sure if it's like considered like, you know, a type of, it's like semi-arboreal. It's like the mix of both worlds. It means like this types of tarantulas can live like on the ground but also on the trees, if that makes sense. So these tarantulas would be like, they can live in both worlds, if that makes sense. So a good example would be like your Dilacthal diamantinensis, or you know, your Chromatopelma pubescens, your GBBs. These tarantulas tend to be more of a New World type of tarantulas that I could think of, you know, or your like your pumpkin patch tarantulas. Like, and then let's get on with this. So from, you know, let's talk about like slings to juveniles to adults. These are the 3 life stages of keeping tarantulas, if that makes sense. This is like basically their essential growth. This is their like growth throughout their lifespan. So slings, it depends on the genus and, you know, the species of the tarantula that you've researched. So with slings, most slings will tend to burrow, but it also depends on the genus. For example, like your curly hair, your common curly hair tarantula, your Tilodical albopilosum, they tend to burrow as slings, you know, and then once they've matured into like juveniles and into adults, they try to like be more confident in themselves and try to be more of a terrestrial tarantula instead of a fossorial tarantula. And then, but if you would compare it to like a Vicularia tarantula, most of their lives they would spend arboreally. You know, they wouldn't be where a curly hair would be in the ground burrow. These are some different considerations that you might need to like consider when picking up a tarantula on how you set up their enclosures. And then we have like the juvenile stage. This is where like the gateway between adults and their teenager years. So this can be like a little bit tricky for some people. Juvenile stage is where tarantulas are about to hit their adulthood, if it's the best way to explain it, but they have never matured yet, and it will take a couple of more molts before they can reach adulthood. People usually get it confused because like they think it's the appropriate size of an adult, but usually doing research and taking the time to take down notes on what is their actual final length in inches when they reach adulthood, so people don't get confused once they've had their tarantula. In a juvenile stage, so usually I have my juvenile Brachypelma hamori. It's like a couple of more molts away from being an adult. Usually like Brachypelmas, like they're around like 5 to like 6 inches. And then we have the adulthood on a tarantula. At this point, these tarantulas need to they're gonna reach their final molt, like 1 or 2 molts, and then they're completely mature. A good example would be my Theraphosis or my GBB. It took them like 6 to 7 molts before they reach adulthood. And for like males, they'll develop like this called pedipalps, where it's like a punching bag to where when doing an insertion in a female's. And then with the females, they tend to be a bit more bigger bodied than the males, because usually it's really common for sexual dimorphism from males to females depending on the genus and species of that tarantula. You will notice that the male is like 2 times smaller than the female, and the female is like way bigger than the male, but both of them are mature at the same time. And then when some genus of tarantulas, when they reach adulthood, males or females will tend to show more brighter colors than the opposite sex gender of tarantula. Usually a good example would be like the Synestis genus, or like the Phamphibedis platyoma. I don't know, I'll just put the name up here. Platyoma. Males tend to have like a brighter purple color, and then the females have like this weird brownish kind of color, if that makes sense. And then let's get on with feeding your tarantulas in different life stages. As slings, I usually tend to feed my slings around once or twice a week, which is plenty enough time, because usually people tend to overfeed them and then their abdomen starts to like swell up and it's like bigger than the entire body of the tarantula, which is very unhealthy and time could make them get stuck in their molting. But molting is where tarantulas shed their old exoskeleton and then form a newer one once they've shed on the old one. The younger they are from slings or like juvenile, the easier it is for them to molt. But once they reach like that adulthood mark, it's kind of harder for them to like molt out. So anyways, from slings, usually I just feed them once or twice a week, which is plenty enough of time. Tarantulas can survive for like weeks or months without food. A good example would be my Aphanopelma semani. I have a female one, a gift from my friend. She usually, once she's had her fill of food, like a large dubia roach, she'll usually just hide in her burrow for like months and months at a time before she emerges out again and eats. And then juvenile stage. This is the stage where I usually feed like once a week or once every 2 weeks, which is a good amount of time so I don't overfeed my tarantula and they won't have a hard time molting out. And then we get on with the adult stage, which is the adult tarantulas that I have once a month, which is plenty enough of time because the more you overfeed them, their lifespan kind of like degenerates, if that makes sense. So usually once a month so they can get that like hunger strike, they can, you know, experience that like wildlife. I don't know how to put it, but I usually feed my tarantulas just once a month from their adulthood. And then let's discuss like different feeders or different types of feeders you can feed your tarantula. My number one rule when it comes to like feeders, never ever like feed your tarantulas like wild caught food. Like seriously, no joke. Like because you never know where it came from. You don't even know if it has like worms or parasites that could like infest your tarantula, and then one day you're gonna wonder like, why is my tarantula dead, you know? And I feel really sad because people are misinformed that like just because you can find a feeder outside of your home or your house or, you know, in the wildlife or wherever you get it, that they could feed it to their tarantula. The feeders I usually use, or that new beginners can use when like good feeders to feed your tarantula. So usually I have like, you know, mealworms, superworms, dubia roach, and then I have like hissing roaches, which is like pretty cool. And then every now and then I get like, you know, hornworms, which is a nice change of their diet. It's a bit like, you know, it has that protein, it got all the juice and nutrients that the tarantula needs. And then last but not least, let's discuss like molting and pre-molts. As I explained previously, molting is where the tarantulas shed their exoskeleton, their old exoskeleton, and then to form out a new exoskeleton. For slings, usually once they've molted, it takes like new exoskeleton to like harden. Usually takes for slings to like 3 to 5 days, which is an adequate enough of time. And then juvenile stage, I usually wait like a week, which is plenty enough of time for them to harden their exoskeleton. And then once they reach like adulthood, I usually wait like 10 to like 14 days, you know, just since they're a bit more hardy and they have a bit more mass compared to like slings and juveniles, that they need a bit more time to like harden their exoskeletons. And then let's discuss pre-molt. Pre-molt is when a tarantula will most likely refuse food, but some, like special occasions, some tarantulas will eat like food once in their pre-molt. Pre-molt is when tarantulas is about to hit that molting process sooner, but some pre-molts can take for weeks or months that you can't really predict on like how and when they will molt, if that makes sense. They will usually like lay down webs on the ground or like on, you know, arboreally or terrestrially on the ground, and then they will lay on their, I forgot to mention this, but when they're molting, they will always lay on their back, and then that's when they will like shed their old exoskeleton and then emerge from the new exoskeleton. They will push out the old exoskeleton. So back to pre-molt. They usually will take like months or weeks. A good example would be my Aphanopelma chalcodes. She's in pre-molt right now, but usually she's been in pre-molt for like 6 months, so which is like a long time. I've had her for like almost a year, and she's only molted with me for like once. So it depends on the genus and their species, depending on how fast or slow they will molt, and then their growth rate, if that makes sense. So it all depends on the keeper at the same time, if that makes sense. So to summarize everything, we explained New World and Old World. We explained the terrestrial, fossorial, arboreal, and then semi-arboreal. We explained the slings to juvenile to adult. We explained like how you're gonna to be feeding your tarantula, different life stages of feeding your tarantula, and then the different types of feeders you can feed your tarantula. And then we also just recently explained the molting and pre-molt. So anyways, I want to do a shout out to my friend from this YouTube channel, 7 Crawlies and Tons Exotics. They're pretty cool guys, so check them out. And then shout out to Ken Relativo, if I don't know if I pronounced it right, I'm sorry. So let's get on with the giveaway. So I'll be explaining the mechanics right now. So anyone can join, so as long as you live in USA, Canada, Europe, and like Asia or Philippines, you know, because those are the only places I can grab like or find like breeders that I could like ship some tarantulas that I would like to give away for my subscribers. So the mechanics on how you could join this is, so to join you have to be subscribed to my YouTube channel and my Facebook channel. So to join you have to comment down below on your top 3 dream tarantulas in my YouTube channel in this video, right down there, and give me one reason on why you should win this giveaway. Once this video hits 4,000 views, I'll be doing the live drawing on my Facebook channel. The easiest way to get this video to blow up, just invite 3 of your friends to watch this video and we'll get on really quick on that giveaway on Facebook. So anyways, as always, thank you guys for watching and supporting my channel. I really appreciate this, and I'll see you for my next video.